Hello, everybody. This is Marcy Taylor. You're watching my Facebook page, and I have two super duper interesting guests, good friends of mine. I haven't spoken to them in years, but they were also part of Decada Noventa, that time that I seem to be isolating in these videos. Dino Ignacio and Budjette Tan, but Budgette's not here yet, so we'll talk to Dino first. Let's bring him in. Hi,
Oh,
Dino. Okay,
hey,
maybe for those who don't know you, let's introduce you.
uh,
Yeah, I can talk about you first. So Dino and I were friends. Well, we met in the '90s. He was a genius, creative genius. He was into comics and books and art, but mostly he's probably known for one of the pioneers in the World Wide Web, the internet back then in Manila. He created Bird is Evil, which you can just search that up, kids. And also, he had his own design studio. And then later on, we actually worked together with our own design studio, among other things. But he was into fashion, just a mover and shaker overall. How have you been, Dino?
thank you for the intro and thank you for having me, Marceline. This is really great to see you after so long. I think we hadn't really seen each other since we visited you guys, gosh, maybe 8, 9 years ago. Or maybe
I know the
a little
kids were
longer.
little.
Must have been 10 years ago before Harley was born, right? So,
No, no, no. Harley was there. I'm trying to find it. I have a picture. So your daughter Harley was there. I remember it was the 2012 Comic Con.
right. No, you're right. Big. So it wasn't like, yes, but then, yeah, I've been doing great. Like, as I mentioned, I have a family now. I've got a 9-year-old daughter. And me, my wife, and my daughter live in Seattle. So after living in San Francisco for most of my adult life, we moved here 6 years ago now, and we're loving it. Yeah, it's been good. Like, still trying to be creative, but a lot of my personal creative effort is now devoted to just like um, crafting and building stuff with my daughter. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, it's good.
Something that started way before. Let's give you a little flashback here. Ta-da!
Oh my God,
Okay.
you took this
Tell us a
photo.
Yes, so I think I don't even remember, but I did find other photos of you which were really fun that I had taken. This is a photo of you in your stormtrooper outfit, and back then I did write for the magazines in the Philippines. So this was a write up on like trendsetters or movers and shakers, as I've called you. Tell us about this love for stormtroopers.
This is really fascinating to see, not only because I have black hair, but also the interesting thing about this photo is that this was probably, if I'm not mistaken, 1997 or
Mhm.
98. I think
Yeah,
97. Or
yeah, 97, I
or
think.
if the Webby Awards already happened, this must have been 98.
Oh, okay.
Read through this. So if that's the case, the interesting thing is the 501st, which is the organization that I'm part of now, um, where people dress up as Star Wars characters for charity, had just formed. Like it's probably
Wow.
like 3 years old, but um, I was too self-conscious and not confident enough to join. Had I joined, I would have been one of the earliest members, but I just didn't think I was ready. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I eventually joined, and I'm part of the organization now. But yeah, this is fascinating because this is like years ago, and I love that you were able to capture this moment.
Yeah, and the thing is, I have very few photographs and images from that time, so I'm glad I have this one. Okay, let's hide it. Well, unless you want to gaze at your
No, it's fine.
20 something self, you look good. You look the same.
Thank you.
But put the stormtrooper head. It's the same. Okay. So that's one of those things you were into. It's hard to describe. So when you think about yourself and how you want to be remembered, let's say by people in the Philippines, what do you think of? How would you describe yourself?
Oh gosh, I honestly haven't given this much thought, so I pardon my answer if it's unfiltered.
No
But
worries.
gosh, how should I be remembered? I don't even know. I guess I'm very proud of our moment in the 90s trying to figure stuff out, like you were saying. And so I think most of all, um, the our time like with X movement, there was this whole attempt at trying to like just like rediscover alternative art in the Philippines. And I'd like to be remembered as someone who helped that happen. Because I think a lot
Hmm.
of the things that are going on right now in terms of like how much art has exploded over there, in terms of the fact that we have so many amazing illustrators and so many amazing writers now. I'd like to think that we were at the beginning of that, and so I'd love to be remembered as somebody who was there for it. Somebody had just posted a photo. I think Budjette tagged me where there was a table of young artists that were part of Alamat Comics, just coming up with all these cool new ideas. And I love the fact that we were there. Um, the interesting thing about this moment in time, and I was that I feel like there was this moment in time where we were there, and music being the biggest catalyst felt like music was catching up, and like finding its identity while at the same time connecting to the outside world. There was Channel V, there was MTV. We were getting all this recognition, and music became like the catalyzing element that made everything else want to follow suit. So we were like comic artists wanted to be like, well, we want to do stuff at par with everybody else out there. Wills had just visited and inspired us. There was like a desire to like catch up in terms of TV and video, music video, in writing, in illustration. And so it was a really interesting moment. And at the same time, I think digital um, arts were starting to emerge. It used to be very
Mhm.
expensive to have a machine that could run After Effects or Premiere or Photoshop, and suddenly it was becoming affordable, which meant that people like me, who were just like little, hobbyists at home, could now become be graphic designers. Could now become
That's true.
that was like a big change. It used to be very expensive. You had to go to a studio or an agency to have a poster done. And now you and I could talk, and in a day we could have a poster for an event, right? And that was a
I
big deal,
know.
right? And that was a big
Oh,
change.
you're not
Sorry,
you're
I'm
not
speaking
talking
out
about
of
the
turn.
yeah, you're not talking about the pirated Green Hills software, are you? No, just kidding.
Oh,
No, no. Um, so talking about that moment in time for the viewers who were NU107 fans, because I know a lot of you are watching this. Fun fact: it was when Dino and I had a company together. It was called Binary Soup. Don't look it up; I can't find it anymore. But we designed the Rock Awards collateral and everything, the one with the Voltus 5 mask. Voltus 5 inspired mask. I actually saw that I had that, and some of the fans here have submitted it. So that brings it back. Also, it jolted my memory of what we did together. So, as far as timeline, basically, I was working at NU107, and I suppose I met you, and Dino managed to pirate me from the coolest job as to start our own company, which, at the time also, that's another thing. Like people were starting companies and kids never did that before because in the Philippines, right? You graduate, you get a job. That was the path. But at the time in the 90s, there was so much potential. I know we weren't the only ones who started up a studio. I know other studios that began and other companies that began back then that some of them still exist and some of them have gone on to do bigger and awesomer projects. So there was that potential, right? So maybe we're at that point right now given the world situation, and I think that I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on how you think the pandemic and world situation is going to affect people's creativity.
oh, that's an excellent topic. So one thing that's interesting about sea changes, or when the currents change, is that that's when new innovation always happens, right? So if you think about like, um, uh, you know, mobile phones and mobile screens getting so cheap that somehow we finally found a way to make VR headsets, right? So a few years, maybe 10 years ago, as the screens for phones became cheaper and cheaper, we figured that we could probably put them in front of our faces. And now we have a new technology where people can immerse themselves in virtual worlds. Or if you go back about 10 years, at the time of the recession, um, and people were no longer needing limo services, someone very smart thought, well, if I have an app and I can make all these limos pick up regular people, since no rich people want them, then maybe I can start a new rideshare business, and out comes Uber. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we are at that sea change again, where working from home is now becoming a real thing, right? So there used to be companies that were video conference friendly, and now we're realizing that that's not enough. Now companies are becoming video conference first. And the key difference between friendly and first is that, now we're thinking, like, when we come out of this, even if people are in the office, people are probably going to do video conference because it levels the playing field. And that changes the way we think about business altogether. And I think this is like a message to any young person out there. This is a great moment to come up with a new idea of how to conduct business, arts, education, theater, broadcast, that changes the way people think of things, and challenge yourself to come up, instead of like thinking, how can I join the workforce and be part of the way things were? When we come out of this, maybe we should be thinking, how do I come up with something that changes the way things are done, so I can be ahead of the curve and I can disrupt the way things are going? It's an exciting moment. Sorry, that's a lot to say, but yeah.
No, no, I feel you. I think one of the first things that people have to accept is that after all this, things won't be the same.
No.
And honestly, why do you want them to be the same when we can make things better?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's caught your eye that maybe you've watched that came out of the last 3 months? Like something cool.
You mean media-wise?
Yes, yes.
Let's see. I've been seeing a lot of really awesome music videos where people are just like doing it from home. Just 2 days ago, we had a concert here in Seattle. If you're familiar with Seattle at all, this is the birthplace of grunge. And so Washington in general. Washington is like the state where Seattle is. So in effect, there's a lot of like people here. Everyone from Ben Gibbard of Postal Service to the Pearl Jam folks are like actually my neighbors. They live in the same.
Oh, cool. That's where you are.
Yes. And then also, but anyway, lots of like people from the grunge era came from here. And so yesterday they had a concert where people just like performed from their houses. Like the whole Pearl Jam crew were performing from their own homes separately. Eddie Vedder had his 2 daughters dancing behind him as he's performing songs, as a concert to raise money for the health workers of Washington. It was an amazing moment in time where, now we can have big concerts from home, and it was beautiful.
Also, yeah, I think everybody suddenly has time, and time is the currency. So you're able to collaborate with people you never thought of, because not like you and me, like when you're working, and we're in the same time zone. We never got to do it. And thanks to technology and the time of being home because of the pandemic, we're able to connect.
Yeah, we're also transcending distances right now. It's amazing. So one thing that's happened to me is that, ironically, because of this pandemic, I have now connected to friends further away.
Yes.
Meaning, like, for example, the other day, a friend was like feeling a little out of sorts, and I'm like, hey, why don't we talk on video? And we did, and we both felt better. And I'm now finding that in this place where I'm just stuck here, I'm now connecting to people further away than I would. Usually I have an excuse. Oh, I'm not talking to so-and-so because they're in New Jersey, or I'm not talking to so-and-so because they're in Manila. Well, guess what? Everybody is far from you right now. So connect to everyone. And so I think we're becoming more human and becoming more empathetic at this moment.
I see that. I know what you mean. I mean, on the one hand, I'm excited by the technology and this burst of creativity that we can push on to everybody like this broadcast. But also there's that personal side that with these same tools we're using to create music and film and whatever, you can use that to really connect with people. um, I I'm part of this Zoom call with some old friends now that we're in 3, 4 countries, and it's regular and it's not for broadcast. We just privately talk every week from everything from K drama to what we're eating. And, at first it starts off with nostalgia, but later you get into each other's actual lives. And I think the reason we do it regularly is just for sanity,
Yeah.
for connection. Like, yeah, so it's really interesting. And there's also a doctor in the group, so she kind of keeps us in the loop. She's a doctor in Manila, so she tells us what's going on.
Yeah.
um, so that's it. I've talked to cousins and aunts, like elderly aunts and uncles, who you need to check in on. And so luckily they kind of figure it out, Facebook and Messenger. uh, so yeah, if you can, guys, connect. It doesn't have to be, there's no agenda, just say hi.
Yeah. The other
Just
interesting thing I should say, mention about this is that, so obviously when we're out, we're always wearing masks. So I think what I've noticed is that since we have to be socially distant, people are going out of their way to seem a lot friendlier because of it. So case in point, when I walk around the neighborhood with my daughter, and another person is coming the other way, we usually like jump to the other side of the street or move away. And
yeah,
because of the fact that we have to physically be disconnected, people are waving, or since they can't
right.
smile, they say hi. So I'm finding, ironically, we're actually connecting to people more because of
Yes.
masks than you wouldn't, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And also the fact that like you can't physically be with each other, you find ways to connect. I started sending out snail mail because, the postal service is still around. So I've written physical letters. And so I was like, "Hey, you guys, I sent this to you a week ago or whatever. Why haven't I heard back? Did you get it? Did the mail fail or whatever?" But no, they go, "No, because we're writing you back too." So it's kind of cool. So you're right. Oh, those are the good things that are coming out of this, and I guess we should focus on that. The other thing that I've noticed are all the live streams and broadcasts coming out of Manila. Actually, I
Yeah,
feel that because I guess they're just a week ahead of the US. I could see how it evolved, first playing with just Zoom calls, and then now this platform like that I have, Be Live and StreamYard, and they're getting more creative.
yeah,
One of the people I interviewed was Scarlett Myra Ruaro Putriska. Her broadcasts are getting so much better technically. I mean, they're always good because the content is always good, but technically they're doing it, and I think performers are trying to find an outlet because they can't perform live, and
yeah.
that's pretty tough.
I saw a really good one from Sandwich. I was like really blown away that they're doing some awesome stuff
Yeah,
through the technology.
right. So that's cool. That's cool. I'd be interested to see what happens, in a month or whatever. But yeah, they did a festival. I think Fête de la Musique was online, and so now, whereas you'd have a festival just in, say, Manila, or we were going to have a festival here in California, we were able to get artists from around the world. And then number two, your audience, such as the audience watching us now, are all over the world as well. And you can tune in anytime because the time zones don't matter, and you
Yeah.
can watch the replay. So cool. Budget is here.
Oh, awesome.
We will introduce him. So, ladies and gentlemen, uh, we're really the third person in our trio, and he is going to be broadcasting from Denmark. He's here we are, the comics purveyor, the creative genius. I'm sorry, I called you guys creative geniuses because, like I said, there were no I couldn't think of a label. You can't just say artist or writer. You guys are so much more than that, and so creative genius number two. Here we go. Where are you? In three, two, one. Budjette Tan. Hey guys, the
Hello,
reunion.
Marceline.
How are you?
Uh-oh.
Hi.
Nice to see you again, Dino.
Ayan.
Nice to see you,
Okay,
bud.
Dino, let me chat with Budjette for a bit, then I'll bring you back in, okay? All right.
Huh?
We will, Dino can go get a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom. I don't know. Okay. Hey, Budjette. This
Hello,
is
Marceline.
Budjette, the founder. Are you the founder of Alamat Komiks? Shall we say that?
Was one of the
One of the
founding members.
founders. Also, the writer behind Trese, the comic book that will soon be on Netflix. How are you and where are you?
Doing fine, thanks. Here with the family. We're now based in Denmark. Been here for nearly, are we about to hit 4 years? We'll be here on our fourth year.
Wow, was your son born in Denmark?
He was 6 months old when he moved here.
Wow.
It feels like he was born here.
Wow. Do you speak Danish?
He is speaking Danish when we're not around, by the way. So he only speaks it with his classmates and teachers. But the moment he gets home, then he switches back to English.
Are you teaching him Tagalog?
We're trying, but definitely we've noticed that he understands Tagalog just on those moments when we thought he doesn't, and it's just me and Melo. So me and Melo will be talking in Tagalog, and suddenly he'll butt in, and when we suddenly figure out, oh, he understood what we were saying.
Oh no, you can't talk behind his back now. Here, I'm going to give you a little flashback, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to scare Budjette with da 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 da.
Oh,
This
goodness.
is Budjette.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what's happening in this photo is one of the few photos that I have left is Budjette hosting. Is that you or Brandy? I can't. No, it's you.
Yes, back then people thought we were twins. So I
Yes,
don't know.
Brandy is his brother. Okay, so this is Club Dread. And as you can see, there's the NU 107 poster back there. This is Tones and Poems, wherein we combined poetry, comics, and music. The other host this night was Karen Kunowicz.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
And
So what do
still-
you remember about that time, and what were you doing during this time? This was in the 90s.
Yeah, of course, I was like a big fan of NU back in the college days. So when I finally found an excuse to step into the radio station and meet you guys, it was a thrilling moment for me to be there. I think the first time I went to NU was because that was where Jessica Zafra had her morning show when it was still a morning show.
Yes, so you were there. That predates me because Jessica had her show before me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so interesting, right? And I think our paths crossed somehow because I was talking with Dino that inevitably all paths crossed. Actually, the first comic book person I met was Russell Tomas.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And then because I was at Mega in the other Strata building, and then I ended up working at NU, and then I guess I'd see you in the elevator too because your dad's TV station was in that building.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm trying to figure out. I was trying to remember, but it was definitely you invited us to be part of that night. I think there was another. I definitely remember Alamat that was 95. That means that's Alamat's first year. And we were trying to find a way to reach an audience, anyone who would want to see our stuff. And I think it might have been Karen who first invited us to one event where there were just a whole lot of other people on that night. And Eddie Boy recently uploaded those photos. And I could see there was one table with comics, the other table, the people were like selling shirts and other pieces of artwork. But I remember being there. I have no idea why we were there. But
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna bring Dino in to see if he remembers more than us.
yeah,
There we
because
go.
he was there. I mean, or at least his comics was, and I tagged him. I tagged him in that
No,
photo,
I,
right? And suddenly, like, appears. And like,
I, I, I still don't know how it all happened, but we were all there.
All leads to, you know what, we like to party, guys. No, basically, Budget, we were reflecting on that time in Manila and how, like I said, no matter what, we would have met. I think one thing is we were into the same things, and so creative minds, you find each other.
Yep.
Like comics, I mean, sure, there was Phil Bar's comics and everybody but comics, but suddenly you're not just consuming comics, you're producing it. I remember meeting a couple people at the Cyber Cafe, not the one that remember that? The Cyber Cyber Cafe. What was it?
yeah, Galleria.
Yeah, the owner was Tina.
And
They kept in touch with me actually, because they're in the States too. Cyber Cafe. That's where I met. I think I met Jerry Alangilan there.
Yes, that it became the default hangout place of Alamat, because we would get our comic books from Platinum Comics upstairs and go to the third floor where Cyber Cafe was. This was, of course, before Dino opened his own internet cafe.
Yeah, a year or two before, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I mean, and I think looking back at that time, there was something interesting happening. That aside, there was a change happening in music. There was a change happening in the comic book field, and even in fashion. I think it was around that same time, right, when what do you call this? Consortium.
Yes.
Consortium started, and there was like, is it Havoc clothes or Chaos clothes?
Havoc. Yeah.
Which was where, I have to bring this up, it was in one of those raves where Dino drags me to his car and brings out a laptop, and I was going, what? A computer can fit into that thing? He opens the laptop and then shows me the pages of the Tower of Misunderstanding.
Oh wow!
And you read the entire story to me while we were standing at some car park while a rave was going on in the background.
Crazy! Wow, what a time!
My gosh.
Remind me, guys, like what came first, Consortium or X Movement? Like when do those fit in the timeline?
I think Consortium came first.
Ooh.
Isn't it?
Because I thought like Consortium was X Movement was that thing that we were doing in Club Dread EDSA, where it was primarily based around like film screenings, but because there were film screenings, comic book creators and poets and writers were asked to have kiosks and like booths around it. And I'm trying to remember which happened first.
It must have been X Movement, because from my memory, that was the first time I stepped into Dread.
Okay.
And then definitely Consortium happened at a much later stage, because they had one at a big studio, and the most memorable one was the one at the National Library.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
God, we weren't even friends then, but I remember that party.
Yeah.
Did they still do that sort? Did they, before pandemic, did they do that sort of thing? I heard, people stopped dancing too. So
there were some places, I think, which people still went. I think Cubao X, and that also dates stuff, but I think later on. And then one last bit for the 90s. And I don't know if we tied up if you were there, Marceline, but Dino's book launch of Tower of Misunderstanding.
Yes, that's where I met him. Tell me about it.
At Mars Disco.
Oh, you're right. So it was Mars. It was Mars.
The connection here is that I was starting my career as a graphic designer.
Yes.
And I had been the in-house designer for flyers for Mars. I was hired by Jay Server, who was at Mars at the time. And I asked him, hey, can I host my event here? And he was like, gracious enough to let me. And I found some amazing theater folks from UP, Jovan being one of them and Ed being the other, and a few others, to stage the book as a performance. It was a really fun event, at least for my memory. It was so cool.
Yep.
Oh my
Yep.
goodness. See, Budget, I think you invited me to that. And so I blame you for introducing me to Dino. I'm just gonna go for that.
Yes, yes. Let's put that as canon already. That was the reason.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it happened after that or if it was because it was my fault that you got to meet Dino. Dino then gets to paint the largest Voltes 5 painting on stage for the Rock Award. Right?
Exactly.
We were-
So yes. Go on, Dino.
about that one, sorry to cut in real quick, is that we were so excited to do a Voltus 5 themed party, even if it wasn't even the 5th annual awards.
It had no connection.
It
was
didn't
too
matter.
bad.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But it was just when you enter that's the event. It was like, oh my god, it's Voltes 5. So
And the weird thing is, I didn't know how the production company was gonna render it, and like what kind of effects, but they managed to do it. So timeline wise, so that happened, right? That happened because by then I had left NU because Dino pirated me. Haha, no. Shout out to the okay, I'll shout out the rest of the crew so that when they watch it, they can comment. That's Neil, Jerry, Mike, Santino, and JJ. Yulo, of course.
And later on, Yvette Co as well, remember? Yep.
Yes, later Yvette and Emilio.
Yep.
So good times, good times. But you know what? When you think about it, that span, when Wills had Starfire and all that,
yes.
it was only 2 years. That moment in time is like 95 to 97,
Wow.
98, something like that. It's small. And so looking back, we did so much. So much. Youth when we didn't sleep. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I really appreciate like Budjette's like timeline of stuff, but it omits all the amazing parts that he was a catalyst for, right? So I just want to call out.
Mention it. Call it out.
There's a moment in time when everyone was just trying to do their own thing, like we were saying, and maybe, as we were talking about earlier, the fact that now there was Channel V and MTV in the Philippines, and our content was getting broadcast further than the Philippines, and the internet was trying to come in. There was an idea of like, how do we build our own identity whilst also connecting to the outside world? And Budjette was pretty much in the forefront of this for comics and writing, right? He had this really grand idea of like, you know what, if we sit under one banner and if we have a standard or branding behind what we're doing, we're gonna get further. And he persistently like just like built this idea up from a dream, like, I've got Flashpoint here, I've got Memento Mori here, I've got all these different like studios here. Let's all go sit under one banner and make something of it. And now look what
I'm getting kinikilig ako, guys.
Well, I cannot that. Yes, thanks, Dino, but I cannot take all the credit for that. It was actually Wills who came up with that suggestion, but I think at the beginning, my grand role in that whole scheme was to pick up the landline and dial people's beeper numbers and tell them and leave messages and tell them there's going to be a comic book meeting, can you come? There's going to be a comic book meeting, can you come? There's going to be a and they did.
My power page beeper.
Oh yeah, easy call, power page.
Your easy call.
Can you please repeat that, sir? Scenario. But yeah, I mean, and then I was just the makulit one and said, do you guys want to meet up again this week? And again, that's what happened to Cyber Cafe. We did have grand plans.
The thing I want to call out, Budjette, is that this amazing phenomenon of like, you had a vision of how a brand could carry everything else, right? So it's like, so often we go with this thinking that, we have to build everything first and then the brand follows. But you were like, no, if we have a strong front and make it seem like we're bigger than what we are, then it becomes an opportunity for us to prove that we are indeed that. And so you took that strategy. It seems like brand first. Let's label who we are, and we'll build everything underneath. It's almost like the train was running while the tracks were being built. And I'd like to talk about that.
Yep. It did feel that. I mean, because the underlying principle was that we help out each other, and anytime you would have a new book, everyone will, in some form or another, come together to help you out. And I think that was just the simple principle that we followed back then. So to the ones who yes, new people in in NU107 who introduced us to the people at Robinson's Galleria, or anytime a new store opened, they would say, "Oh, I put my comic book here. You guys can also come over." I think people just helped out each other at that time, and I think yeah, exactly. When you got invited to X Movement, that's when you said, Alamat should have a table here. When we got invited to console, oh wait, so the other sorry, talking about Fractal Cow. The first time I ever saw the logo Fractal Cow was at the album launch of River Maya at Campo, and you printed it out on glossy paper, and it was like part of the display. And you were like,
Really?
"Oh my god, it's a 3D CG art! That's the most amazing piece of art, Dino, that we've ever seen."
Oh my gosh.
But that was how
Wow.
it was. It was like, "Hey, I've got a gig here. Alamat, come on over. I've got a." In Malate. We were invited to like street parties in Malate by Studio 23.
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, the TV channel, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, when it was still, what was it back then? Yeah, that was where all of the foreign shows ended up, right? So yeah, it was like we got invited, come on over, we have a little table, everyone gets to be part of this. And
Wow.
and yeah, that was just how we helped out each other.
And you're right, Dino, to call it out that it was like strength in numbers. And, one of the things about Filipinos, they say there's crab mentality and stuff like that. And you could see that that could have happened with comics because everybody had their own imprint, basically,
Mhm.
and their own title. By banding together, it became a stronger voice. So clap, clap, clap. Okay, so my next question as we leave that period, but wow, I'm set up naman to remember all that stuff. Um, I feel like for me, for example, I think my journey began in those years as a marketer. So that's what I do professionally now. I'm a marketing professional. But before that, guys, secret, I was a school teacher. Oh, but you
Oh
didn't know that.
no, okay.
Yeah, revealing it. So it was just a year like after college, I'm gonna go back to my school that we won't mention, but you guys know, um, uh, and give back, ganon. But and then eventually, I started going to concerts and those parties, and saw that the world is big out there, and there are all these interesting people. And eventually, I stopped teaching, went to Mega, and then ended up at NU107. That was my first real marketing job. Um, so it paved the way for what I became, and meeting Dino and the Soup Bunch. They put me in a marketing position. So, but yeah, okay, you find your talent, your strength, and then you run with it. So, like for you ended up in advertising, right? So, how do you think the time in Alamat and those early years? Did you always know you'd end up in advertising?
No, it was well, when of course we had a grand plan for Alamat, and a lot of those grand plans didn't push through. Dino did the bright thing and said, "I'm going to set up a graphic design studio and web design." But yeah, eventually it just came to the point when, of course, I needed the regular income, I think. So my brother Brandy was the one who started to get into advertising ahead of me,
Mm.
and so I tagged along. But yeah, I think, and actually the time in Alamat is what allowed me to get into an ad agency. So in my first interview, they said, "So what have you got? What work do you have?" And I pulled out some scripts that I did for a radio station, like blurbs and AOBs and stuff like that. I pulled out the Batch 72 comic book, and then I pulled
Wow.
out a VHS tape because we got invited by MTV Asia back then, to do promo spots.
Mhm.
So I said, here's one radio idea, here's one print idea, and here's something on video. And then they just
Wow.
asked me, "Are you used to working long nights?" And I thought, yeah, I usually stay up late to write my comics. I guess I can do long nights. not knowing that when they say long nights in the ad agency world, it means you really have to sleep for like 48 hours. Um, but yeah, somehow through those three pieces that I pulled out of my bag, they accepted me in the ad agency, and I was there ever since.
Okay, how about you, Dino? Because I think like in the beginning you were like a fine artist.
Yeah.
That's what you were. How do you end up in game design and
Yeah.
all that?
So I remember I was at UP, and my understanding of what art was fine art. I always
Mm,
wanted to be an artist, and I thought if I was going to be one, I needed to learn the traditional methodologies for it, painting, and sculpture, something very tangible. And I didn't really imagine art to be anything other than that. But then on the side, this is we're looking now back at 1994. The internet was starting to come into the Philippines, and I was starting to build my website, and so it was just my side gig. I was just doing digital stuff on the side. um, and what happened was, fast forward to 1998. I went to San Francisco, and I for because I was nominated for the Webby Awards, and then I saw a whole different world. I saw
mm.
that digital arts was a thing. Like, I met some amazing people at this event, and I came back to the Philippines thinking, oh, fine arts is great. I'm glad I have that background. I'm glad I got the training, but there's this whole other thing, this whole digital art thing that I want to explore. And so I made it my goal to end up studying digital arts, and I wanted to go back to San Francisco. So fast forward a year later, I ended up studying such in the Academy of Art in San Francisco. So that was like the twist, the change there. Like, I thought it was just a side gig, and maybe I could make money off of it, but I didn't really consider it being my main thing. And then fast forward to now, I ended up working in the games industry for almost a decade, mostly at EA. And then I eventually ended up working at Oculus, which is where I am now, um, creating what VR and other forward-facing technologies can do for digital arts. So it's just an amazing like shift, and I still value all the things I learned in fine arts, and I still apply them. But yeah, I'm glad that I did, because I think it broadened my understanding of what narrative was, what art was,
Mm.
what expression is. But yeah, all because because the internet came into my life.
Wow, all our lives, right?
Yeah.
Um, I can't. I'm like at a loss for words. Budget. What about you? How did you end up at Lego in Denmark?
Again, it's all thanks to advertising. I mean, I'm now in the internal ad agency of Lego. Um,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, so we do the advertising campaign. So the Lego TV commercials or videos that you might see on social media, that's made by the team here in Denmark.
Oh, so it's all
And
in house. Yeah, it's all in house. Okay.
yes, yes. So the main agency is here, but there are different agencies in specific countries around the world. But the more often than not, the main idea comes here. And I got here thanks to a fellow someone that I worked with in the agency, and a fellow comic book writer, Mervin Ignacio. So Mervin is the writer and co-creator of the comic book Skyworld, and we work together in Harrison Communications and in Macan as well. So yeah, so one night when we were just all hanging out, he surprised everyone with the fantastic news, and he said that, hey, I got into Lego, and I'm going to work at the Lego ad agency. So all of us were like blown away, and we thought, what? They're actually allowing people from who's not from, and to begin with, what, Lego is in Denmark?
Yeah.
Lego is made in
Wow.
Denmark. So yeah, so we learned a lot of things that night. But there, so Mervin was the one who first got into the agency, and funnily enough, it was like that became a way. It was like the secret way in, because aside from me, there are other Filipinos here, and somehow by wonderful chance or luck or what or fate, we had all worked together in Manila at one
Wow.
point or another. So there are a couple of us who are working in the agency. One of us is working in the design area of Lego, and the others are, and a couple in the strategy department. But there, it was like it was just eye opening. We gave it a try. It actually took me a year of trying before I got in. But yes, thankfully, and it somehow all timed. It was all perfectly timed with the birth of my son. So now it's a great place to raise a kid, and he's like doing stuff with Lego which I never knew you could do. So
Early exposure is the key, ladies and gentlemen. Also, the lesson that I'm taking out here is that, when we were young and beautiful in the 90s, those connections, they last, and you remember them and they can be useful. So be nice, everybody. Um, I'm going to segue into an experience that we share in common is that we are expats. We are not in the Philippines. Uh, I know that when Dino was in San Francisco, you were very active with the community there with Bindle Stiff and stuff. And so maybe you can talk to that, how you are still connected to the Filipino community, and then Budget, you can tell us about Denmark after. Let's go to Dino first.
Yeah, when I was in San Francisco, where and I had mentioned I spent now most of my adult life there. I spent 16 years there. Um, there was a sense of longing because I had just moved from Manila. I was looking for some way to connect and find myself in the city, and I was lucky enough to be connected with some amazing people that were running a theater. And that was Bindlestiff. So I had met Lorna, who was one of the resident artists there, Alan Manalo, who was one of the person running the space at the time, and all these amazing people like Mark Marking and Ohms Velasco. Anyway, all to say that I was suddenly surrounded by amazing, and most of them were like American-born kids who were just trying to find connections to
Yes.
the diaspora also. And here I am, this fob coming in with a different understanding, worldview of what it is to be Filipino, and it was a great opportunity to connect, share, and also learn. I honestly, we were all born of the 70s, and I think, tell me if this is your experience, but we were born from the time when the goal of the Filipino was to be more westernized. We were raised on English television, English education, and English business practices, right? So maybe it's changed now. It's a lot more Tagalog centric or Filipino centric, but we were like raised to be more Western.
Yes.
And so there was never really, at least from my mind, a desire to be Filipino. Like I just were, and I just didn't know what it was to be. Um, uh, my identity was like somehow muddled up. Like the analogy I make is like I felt like I was someone who had partial amnesia. Like I knew more about like Western culture, but only parts of it. Like
Gotcha.
I knew NBA, but I didn't know, let's say, baseball, for example, or something like that, right? So,
Gotcha.
like, we had like partial understanding of their culture, and so coming here was where I actually got awakened to be Filipino, because I was now meeting people who were ever more so hungry and thirsty for what it was, and it was very humbling to actually come to terms with the fact that I actually knew less about like by buy-in, or I knew less about our mythology than some people I was meeting here. And so that was like really great to be part of, and to share. So I got involved in that, and then even now that I'm here in Seattle, and now especially because of this pandemic, I've been finding ways. Nina's been finding ways to sort of still do stuff for that community. We just did a puppet show
Oh,
with
nice.
the theater folks that we know from there, and I'm happy to share the link with you guys later. And then also just Nina has been actually more so than I been trying to form a theater group with our friend Lorna, who also moved from San Francisco, here in Seattle. So we're still trying to find ways to connect. The community, Filipino community here is a little bit more spread out, so it's harder, but they're slowly finding ways to do it.
Cool.
Uh,
Budget, what's your Filipino experience in Denmark like?
uh, well, it's the Filipino community is basically us, the grand total of like what 12 people here.
Okay.
But we have, I mean, we have met definitely other Filipinos, and there is a surprisingly a big population here in Denmark, and more often than not, we bump into them when we go to church. So that's when we suddenly say, "Oh, so this is where all the Filipinos are." It's great that there is actually a Filipino store in the city where we used to stay, but we moved out of that city last year. But yeah, so I mean, it's great to know that wherever you go, you will bump into a Pinoy somewhere. But what has also been nice being here is that there is an interest as well in our obviously they've an interest in our country and in our culture. So last year I was invited to give a talk about storytelling, and of course I had to inject our own myth and folklore into that discussion. So I was presenting to a mixed audience, of course, of people from this region. And because of that one talk, I got invited to two other talks. And there was just this big they are in awe of our stories. And when I do ask them about it feels like for them their myths are it's stuff that they heard during childhood, but I guess it's when they grew older, it's not something they would still talk about on a regular basis. It's not like with us. It's like you constantly it's become the excuse of like, oh, what happened to that person? Ah, baka na encanto, or there was a strange noise happening outside. Ah, baka may aswang. It's such an everyday
Right.
reality for us. When for them it was like, ah, yes, we talk about the Nise, the dwarves when we were children, or they talk about it when holidays come around, right? But it's not like you'll say, oh, you don't normally hear them say, oh, there's a Nise hanging around on the corner. For us, it's like, ala, baka may nuno dyan. Alam mo, baka manuno ka. It's just it's bukang bibig natin to talk about our own myth and culture.
Yeah.
So when I had the chance to share it was interesting to hear all of their questions and their great interest in knowing more about our country.
Wow, galing. So for me, my experience, I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. In the East, I know there are Filipinos there, but where I was, there weren't very many. Like I was the token Asian next to the Chinese restaurant owner. Um, and then eventually, yes, I realized, yeah, if you go to church, that's where the Filipinos are. But moving to California, which is obviously more Filipinos, more mixed kids and such, that's a different experience. And like Dino, I share the experience where I became more Filipino. Um, Working like at NU, a lot of us, of course, we spoke English, the schwar English and stuff like that, to the point that some people never knew that I am from the Philippines. I grew up in Manila all my life. They just thought that I wasn't from there because of what Dino was talking about, that more Western mindset. So now, though, I have reconnected with my Filipino community here, and it's thanks to another blast from the past. It's G Tonji, who didn't she
Okay.
host MTV at some point and all that stuff. So she leads an organization called Philam Arts.
Okay.
And I even worked with, there's another MTV VJ in there, Belinda Panelo, one of the original VJs.
Yeah.
So we all just got together, and so we're doing stuff together. At the
Nice.
start of the pandemic, it's supposed to be this massive Filipina festival. Um, but then the pandemic struck and we were able to take it online. So that was brilliant. So I am trying to keep plugged in,
Mhm.
especially because we have kids now. And so it's like the next generation. Another way I'm super plugged in is because of food, which I think is what will bring, Filipinos to the forefront. I think it's becoming more accepted and all that stuff, right? It's gonna be the food, guys, and it's adobo, but really it's ube. That's my
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
Ube is the secret thing. I mean, it was on. Was it Steven Universe or something? Where there
Yes.
was
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
ube.
Yep.
So it's those subtle things, I think. And then for my kids now who are mixed, the younger one, he's so into being Filipino. It's cool to be Filipino now. As opposed to before where we would just adapt and kind of assimilate and hide it.
Yeah.
Now it's cool. But they're getting sick of me saying, "Oh, uh, what's his name? Bruno Mars, Filipino yan, Filipino yan." And he goes, "Mom, everyone is Filipino.
Yeah.
What's going on?"
Yeah. 1/4. Yeah. We're
We're
very
gonna
proud.
count every drop of blood, guys.
Yeah. We most definitely will. Oh, that's fantastic.
Right. And so how about you? How are you staying creative while we're all stuck in this weird place right now? How are you guys personally staying creative if you are? And I know you have kids, so they keep you busy.
Um, for myself, I'm doing a lot of like nerd crafting.
Nerd crafting.
Nerd crafting, like I've just been I've been building Star Trek props right now for myself, just little Star Trek things. And then I think you can see my R2 in the back. He's
He can move, right?
Yeah,
He moves, right?
he
Yeah.
moves, he beeps. Let's turn him on for a second. Yeah, so it's a lot of crafting.
Show and tell time, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So come here, buddy. Oh,
I'm gonna remove myself from the screen so you can see it.
Let's turn him on. Come on, come here. Oh, there he goes. There he goes. Anyway, just like stuff like that, building a lot of stuff like that, and then on the side, now I'm getting into like building little Star Trek props, and then hanging out with my daughter. We do a lot of drawing, and we've actually been building a lot of stuff in Roblox and Minecraft.
Oh.
A lot of fun. Harley and I are like starting to get into Animal Crossing. So a lot of my personal projects are either nerd stuff or stuff for my daughter. I get to work on a lot of creative stuff at work, so the thirst for like being creative at home has been refactored to like spending time with a kid or doing some nerdy stuff. It's fun.
That's cool. How about you, Budjette? Any amazing Lego creations?
Oh, well, it comes and goes. I mean, yeah, same with Dino now that, especially during the early days of the lockdown when Sarah would stay here, of course. So he would either be binge watching stuff on YouTube. But the fantastic thing, and it amazes me because with no prompting from me or Wella, he would be watching something and suddenly he would stop watching and then drag me to his playroom and says, "Dad, we need to build this." And it's because he saw something on video and he wanted his own version of it. So he would then, so for me, the most amazing thing he's built so far was that he saw a mechanized marble shooter from one of the videos. And then at first I didn't know, he just started to get and he was using Duplo bricks, by the way. He started to put stuff together and I had no idea what he meant by it. And then he got the marble, he placed it there. And then he showed me the video. And then I realized, oh, you need a rubber band for this. And then I gave him the rubber band and he figured out how to make a shooter for marbles.
He's 4 years old, am I right? Or 3, is it?
He just turned 4.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
And either that, or if it's not with his bricks, then it's something he'd want to do on paper. So yeah, I really like. And the other day, what do you call this? So one of his favorite books is you should find it next time you're in Manila. It's a series of books by Robert Magnuson, and it's called Duck and Croc, and it's about two friends, a crocodile and a duck, and they go on crazy adventures. And one book is that Croc could not get her favorite toy. So what Duck did was he made he made a toy, an action figure, a doll for Croc, and then he also made a comic book about the doll,
Aw.
right? So we've been reading this book for what, over a year. And then on one particular night, I just pointed to that part where I said, "Take a look, Sarah. They've made a comic book about the character." And then right after that, he goes, right as soon as I finish the story, he goes, "Dad, let's make a comic book."
Oh
Oh, what happened? Were you like, ooh?
I was just staring at him, and I was like trying my best to not cry. It's like,
I know, you're making
comic book?
Oh.
So we got some paper, and Wella got a stapler and stapled some paper
my
together. And then, and then they start. Do I have it? I don't have it here. So he started to draw the comic book, and of course, while he was drawing, I was going, "Should I tell him that the cover shouldn't look like that?" No,
Oh.
no, you should. Okay.
Okay, for me, because my kids are older and so cute, because I do remember those years.
Yeah.
They they were binge watching Avatar, The Last Airbender. Okay,
Yeah.
not Blue People. And then my older son, he's in his room and he's just recent. He paints and draws, but so he recently built a computer because he's stuck here at home, and then so he's doing it digitally. And then so I go, "What is that?" "Oh, there are quotes from Avatar," and so he's
Oh,
doing like a
nice.
series. I go, "Keep it up." So whatever keeps you busy since we're all stuck here. For me though, I'm writing more and
Oh,
growing plants in those
yeah.
little pots. Celery. I ate celery. So now I have potatoes on the windowsill, and they look like aliens. It's
Wow.
but so it's cool that that's all happening. I know some other people that are cooking more.
Yeah.
Just whatever to be creative. I think we're gonna end soon because Dino's got to go, and it's probably super late in Denmark. Is there anything else you want to say? And I think we should do this again
Yes.
because this has been super fun, and maybe we can invite other
Yeah.
people on it. So let me know who you'd like to
I'd
have.
like to plug something that's really important.
Sure.
Budjette's comic book is coming out to be published by a U.S. publisher, and it's on pre-order on Amazon right now. I suggest you guys buy it if you haven't picked it up. If you're also like us and you're not in the Philippines, this is the best way to get copies of Trese. Please support. It's an amazing book. Go buy it right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
On Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right. How could we not talk about that big elephant in the room that will bring more Filipinos into the world stage? Trese, the comic book, soon to be on Netflix. Is
Also,
it gonna be animated? Talk about
Yes.
this. First of all, for those people that don't know, because like I didn't finish the book either. I only knew the early times because nobody sent it to me.
Nah,
Yeah. And I remember when you did
send you stuff.
the Kickstarter. I remember that. I supported that. Hello.
Thank you.
So tell us about Trese, the comic book, the book, and then eventually Netflix. And I know you can't give details, but more or less, let's give the stage to Budjette. Here we go.
Thank you, Dino, for bringing that up. So Trese is a comic book I made with Kadjo Baldissimo. Kadjo, if you remember, Marceline was one of Russell Tomas' artists, or he was part of the original virtual media studio, and that's where we met. I met Kadjo when I would visit Russell and his team back then. So we made a comic book back in 2005. It's called Trese, and it's about Her name is Alexandra Trese, and she is the expert that the police call whenever there's something strange or weird happens in the city. And more often than not, of course, it is a crime related to an aswang or an atikbalang or a tiyanak. So it was really a way for me and Kajo to tell those stories that we heard when we were growing up, all of our stories from myth and folklore, but because I have a great love for mystery stories, a great love for X-Files and CSI, and of course Batman and John Constantine, I was trying to find a right mix to tell supernatural stories in Manila. And hence we came up with Trese. And back then at that time, I had self-published uh, 4 issues of other comic books that never made money. So I was kind of burned out for shelling out money for comics that don't sell. Even though it was much fun, it was a lot of fun. So that's why when Kajo said, let's do this, I said, okay, let's do this for fun. I'm going to photocopy 30 copies and we'll just sell it at Comic Quest, our wonderful friends at Comic Quest. And we sold it for 30 pesos per copy because we thought no one's probably going to buy this. So let's just make sure it's cheap enough that people will buy it. But the fun thing that happened was that every week we got a call from Comic Quest who said, you've run out of copies, please deliver more. And trying to fast forward a little bit, 2 years later, Visprint picked us up. So we got a publisher. A couple of years later, we won the National Book Award for Best Graphic Novel of that year.
Oh my goodness.
And we won it for 3 straight years, thankfully. And then after that was when I met Tanya Yuson. So Tanya Yuson is our producer.
She was my classmate, dude.
No!
In college, yeah. Small world, I told you. Okay, yeah, so crazy.
So Tanya Yuson and her partner is a movie producer from Indonesia, Shanti Harmain. And they have a company called Base Entertainment. 10 years ago, and I know that because I just checked my email on when I first met her. 10 years ago, I met Tanya and she said, I'm looking for stories that we can adapt into TV or a movie. So for 10 years, we have been pitching Trese to so many producers out there. And finally, it was thankfully Netflix anime division said, we want to produce anime that's not from Japan, or we want to expand our roster. So they said we want to do more anime, but and one of the biggest tension points every time Trese is pitched is how much do you dial down its being Pinoy to make it acceptable in that certain market. And Netflix said, dial it up. The more Filipino it is, the better it is, because they want that kind of variety in their channel, on their platform. And it was wonderful that they were able to get Jay Oliva, who is also Pinoy, who has directed a lot of my favorite Batman animated movies. And that we were able to put together a Pinoy writing team, and they have put together a Pinoy cast as well. And then because of the news that it was coming out in Netflix, that's when a company in Portland called Ablaze contacted me and said, we are a brand new company and we are going to publish in the US. What they specialize in are titles that are from outside the US. So they are bringing in European graphic novels, manga, and manhwa from Korea. And then they heard about Trese and they said, do you want to be part of our lineup? And when I saw who the other creators were, I said, yes.
Wow, that's so awesome.
So the comic book comes out this September and the anime is in the works.
Oh my God. Okay, here's our next thing, guys. We're going to have a viewing party when it's ready. And I don't know, I'll go to Seattle or you come to California. I'm going to hit up all those musicians that I've reconnected with that are here. You know, you got Parroquia here,
Oh,
Teeth is here. You know, they're all here. So we'll have a party.
Nice. Thank you. Let's do it.
Ah, oh my gosh.
that'll be
Anyway, it was so much fun talking to both of you. Thank you for taking the time. And everybody watching, don't forget to follow these guys. They're on socials and everything. Follow what they're doing. Be inspired by them. I found a really good talk by Budjette on creativity. It's like his TED Talk. It's on YouTube, and I guess I'll put the links there too because it was very inspiring for me. Also, I never knew why your name was Budget, and I learned it from that talk that you did. And so now, Dino, do you have any last words?
I just want to say thank you to both of you for having me. I'm so glad to catch up with you guys. Let's do this offline if we wanted to, like not on stream as well. I really miss you both. Thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity. You guys have a great day, and let's talk soon.
Hey, Dino, do you mind if I show something from your past? And we
Oh.
can end with that.
Oh my God.
It was you. No, it was you at that party. No, it's not that. It's something you. It's something you created with Rex Navarrete.
ah,
Oh,
Can
sure.
I end with that? Are you sure? I mean,
Really cool.
I know it's old, but I think everybody will enjoy it. So we're gonna put that on. And thank you very much. Have an awesome day. When this airs, it will be morning in Manila. So good morning, everybody.
Morning, everyone. Thank you again.
all right.
We can watch it.
Oh
Okay,
wow.
bye, guys.
Bye. Do I just log off?
Hello, my name is Maritiles. I don't want to say my last name. I want to protect my employers. This is hard for me. I've been working for the Super Friends for 18 months now. I don't want to talk bad, but I have to tell the truth. They treat me bad here sometimes. I come from Zamboanga to work for the Super Prince. I saw an ad and I said, sure, I'll work for you, you superheroes. I'm sorry, it's hard. So I answered the ad and I said yes, and then one of them picked me up right away. Wonder Woman, she came in her plane. She said, it's over here. I could not see it. It was invisible. I took the plane ride to America, to a place unknown. I don't even know where the Hall of Justice is. They don't let me out. It's so hard. It's so hard. Okay, I continue. So, the story begins where I come here, I get friendly for them. They like me. There's no children, except one, they're twins. And they're monkey. I don't like monkey. I don't like monkey. But I have to send money back home. Okay, I continue. It's so hard. And so, I think there's like a sexual harassment here. Because I'm cleaning the house, the Batmobile, And then Superman, I think he's looking through my clothes. I have to cover. I have to cover myself. Yes, you're bad. But he has a special power. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. My visa just ran out 2 months ago. My visa expired. I'm illegal here. I'm illegal alien. But Superman is from Krypton. He's alien. He's here. He can stay here. I can stay here. I'm from Earth. But he can stay here. That's not fair. That's not right. Because he's white. That's why. I'm sorry. I thought we're friends in the beginning, because I wanted to go to the Philippines for Christmas to see my family, and it's almost running out of time. So Superman fly me real fast, but he start getting hot. He fly too fast, so he put me down, and I was in Kenya for 2 days. That's not right. I miss my family. I have to eat bugs. But he's not the only one. I have worry. I have a worry for the other members of the Super Friends. Batman. I have to say the truth. I think he's gay. I think he's a gay. I think he's bakla, or I don't know. Because he's always hanging around with that little boy, Robin. I don't know. Always riding the car. Always going down the bat pole. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But Aquaman, he's the bad one. I don't know, I thought I'm friends for him. I thought I can joke around for him. But he get kind of sensitive, When there's like a giant attacking New York or something, like big monster from space. And he's like pushing down the buildings. And all the super friends go. They fight him except for Aquaman. Because he's only powerful in water. So I make fun to that. And he say, wow, Aquaman can go again. I think I hurt him. But there is one time, this is the last straw. I have to go on record for this. I prepare their meals, I clean their room. I don't have to worry about Flash because he's very fast. He's in, he's out. I don't see him. They're eating their meals, but then they eat American food. I don't like to eat that. That's inhuman. To force a Filipino to eat hot dog, chili fries, hamburger. So when they're all gone, right? I turn on the blower in the kitchen, really high, and then I'm cooking my Filipino food, and then Aquaman came in, and he screamed, "What are you doing? What are you doing? That's a crime." And I just say, "I'm just cooking fish. I'm just cooking fish. I'm so sorry, Aquaman."
Thanks for watching, everybody. And thanks to my guest, Dino and Budjette. Follow their projects. Thanks again. See you next week. Bye.